Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome to another little review of a Microsoft Flight Simulator product. So today we are having a look at this really space-age futuristic looking aeroplane called the Quickie Q200 from developer Lionheart Creations. And it is an interesting aeroplane for sure. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this aircraft, I thought, oh, this is some sort of experimental flight, dream or flight of fancy or something. Nope, this is a real aeroplane. And I did some looking into it, and it is batshit insane, and I absolutely love it. I really, really do. Okay, so before we get too far into this review, I do want to say a huge thank you to the team over at Lionheart Creations for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft today. So we're going to be doing our usual format. We're going to go through, we're going to have a look at this model externally, you're going to go jump into the office, and then we're going to take it for a couple of quick a quick test flight. But it should be an interesting one going it through Beggar's Canyon. But of course, that's a little bit later on in the review. So let's start a look here. So this aircraft, as I said, this is a real airplane. So this is based, this is the Quickie Q200, which itself is derived from the Q2, which itself is derived from Burt Rutan's Quickie Q1. So originally it was designed, and for those who may know their aviation, Burt Rutan was known for his eccentric designs, shall we say, but definitely some of the most pioneering. He's definitely absolutely the most pioneering aviation engineer of our time, that is for sure. And he brought to us many weird and wonderful creations and very successful things. And this was one of his designs, looking for something that is a very highly efficient, very highly, high lift design, very stable, but it has a lot of quirks with its handling, particularly at low speeds and low to the ground, because you end up getting the ground effect. Actually, I was reading up, as I said, I was reading up on this aircraft leading into it, and you end up getting this huge ground effects bubble when flying this aircraft because of its design. And it becomes almost like an ekranoplan when it's within a wingspan sort of altitude from the runway. So it can catch the unwary pilot off guard, that is for sure. But again, as I said, it's got this really unusual design, and its flaps and aileron system is really unusual as well. Like, for example, the ailerons are on the rear wing, and the elevators are on the front wing, which is something that I wasn't prepared for, and did some reading on. And I thought, oh, maybe the animations are wrong with this model. No, they're right. This is how this works. It's almost like a canard. It really is like a canard design, and as I said, it is absolutely fascinating. So this aircraft is designed as both a tourer and also, but then took on a bit more of this racing sort of stripe with the higher powered variant, and it can, and I believe there is a racing racing category for this, or this falls in one of the racing categories that appears at Reno. So this feels like a perfect aircraft that will be coming up with the very shortly to be released at Microsoft Flight Simulator racing edition for Reno. So very excited to see this one there. All right, but as I said, like this model is incredibly detailed. Like I say, it's a very, I got other things to say about this model. Like the model, it looks deceptively simple, and yet it is just there's a lot of detail in it because there's all the it's very curved, very streamlined, very flowing design. And in fact, there's actually another derivation of this aircraft known as the Dragonfly, which is another offshoot of the original Q1 design. So yeah, it very much you can see how it got that sort of nickname of Dragonfly. Indeed, one of the liveries that ships with this aircraft pays homage to that with actually being named as a Dragonfly. But yeah, the model is really interesting with this fascinating tricycle, or sort of fascinating tail dragger design included here. Fixed undercarriage with the spats, and the spats actually help increase the wing area as well with the hard covered spats at the end. You get a variety of color schemes included with it, covering many different colors, or this one is probably one of my favorite one with the carbon fiber material design to it. I really like this one, and the racing pinstripes are kind of cool. All right, so let's go. You got the tinted windows. Just interesting thing as well. I just want to highlight. So the developer Lionheart Creations put a custom pilot model in this one because they were going to use the Asobo models. However, unfortunately, the Asobo models do not deal very well with the positioning of the pilot and the passenger in this aircraft because this aircraft is, as you can see, it's a very compact aircraft and it has a very sort of sort of laid back design for here. So it is something to be aware of. Magic of editing. We'll just put the open up the canopy there, so you can see there. It's a very sort of lean back in. Much like a sport. Yeah. Well, let's be honest. It is a sports car. This is a sports car. It's designed to go. It's designed to go fast and have fun. So with that in mind, unfortunately, yeah, the developer does lament that the Asobo pilots were not able to be used with this one. Maybe they said that they're hoping that maybe that will change in the future, but there you go. Anyway, but as I said, I think this looks awesome. So yeah, I love it. I think it's awesome. Speaking of the cockpit, let's jump into the office and let's have a look and get ourselves started. So here we are in the office of this beautiful little Q200, or the Q2. As I said, the Q200 that this aircraft model is a Q2, just with a higher rated engine installed in it. And you can actually tell from I just realized that the little key ring on the keys actually has Q200. That's nice. A nice touch. I really like that. You've got a basic avionics suite in here. Now, the developer does acknowledge that they've added in an autopilot, which is not present in the Q200 normal suite of avionics. But given that this aircraft is a home-built aircraft, then it's perfectly feasible that a pilot, as an owner builder, would have actually put one in. So perfectly valid, and it does function in here in the sim as well. Otherwise, the layout is very stylish, very clean. It's very clean layout, very stylish layout, and again, just really embraces that sporty design to it. So without any further ado, let's get started. Oh, probably should point out one thing here, which is very interesting here, and we'll see that later. The flaps lever here is actually really different because instead of the sort of, down to go, sort of back to go down, it's actually forward to go down, which is interesting. And your trim is controlled from there as well, or your pitch trim is controlled there as well. And you got your aileron trim there on the side there for nice and levels because, not much to the rudder on this one. All right, so let's take this time to get ourselves started up here. So again, very sort of car style layout to this aircraft. So let's get ourselves started. So first off, we're going to power on our battery. Okay, so the battery master is on. Now your fuel fuel switch pump comes on straight automatically. That's another interesting thing to actually quickly discuss about this aircraft as well, is that it has two fuel tanks, but they are not connected. So you have your usable tank, which is a 5-gallon tank, which is governed off the left gauge here. But then you have a secondary sort of cruise tank, which is the gauge on the right there. Now that tank does not feed into the engine, and you have to manually use your auxiliary fuel transfer pump to move fuel from that secondary tank to your prime tank to actually be able to fly it. And you do need to do that during flight if you want to go a long way. If you're going to cruise, you get about 400 nautical miles at an optimum sort of cruise setting for this. But otherwise, this aircraft is designed to go fast. All right, so we've got our avionics. Our battery is on. I'm going to turn our avionics master on as well. Okay, I'm going to push my mixture in. Parking brake is set. All right, so we're going to put our nav lights on because there's no beacon in this one. So we're going to put our nav lights on to warn everybody they're about to start up. All right, then we're going to crack the throttle a little bit, and we're going to turn our keys. Now, a little thing that I was caught by with this one is that if you just sort of roll your mouse over here to sort of the start, the engine won't start, because just like in the real aircraft, you actually have to hold the starter in position until the engine catches. So really nice little detail that the developers put in for this one. So, and there it is. You have to hold it in long enough for the engine to catch. So it's a small thing, but that's that kind of attention to detail that I'm really loving in this. Okay, so let's close the canopy down. Now we're all started up. Okay, so we're ready here. So as I said, battery avionics is all on, ready to go. Okay, test our RPMs. Whoop. Oh, and that's something you have to be really careful of, is that because it is a little nose heavy, if you overpower it, it will tip forward. So very something to be very aware of with that one. All right, let's put our landing lights on, strobe lights on, and we'll release our parking brake. And even at idle, she will taxi a little bit. So let's take this opportunity now to taxi out. So she is fairly. It is in many ways it reminds me a bit like of a fighter in some ways, because she's very zippy in how she performs. Now I'm just checking the windsock here now for my active runway. It looks like it's going to be a crosswind, so we're going to go taxi down this way. It looks to minimize our crosswind for our departure. But yeah, she's very nimble and sort of very slippery with some of her maneuvering as well on the ground, much like she is in the air as well. So we'll just leave our less idle along here a little bit. Okay. As I said, like, this is, at idle. I've got my throttle at idle here, and she's still just trundling along. So it's something to be, aware of with this aircraft, is that she has a bit of speed to her. She has a bit of speed to her, both in the air and on the ground as well. All right, now we've got my trim set. So trim at neutral for takeoff. Okay, now it's going to touch the toe brakes to slow that down a little bit. We're coming up on that end of the runway here. Okay. Now, one of the things about this aircraft, as I said, she is a racer, which means that she just wants to get up and go, she realized, but she is also quite at home in a cruise configuration as well. So we're going to do our takeoff very shortly, which is going to be, which should be interesting if my test flights so far have already been anything to go by. Now we'll taxi here. Go. Now this was a later variant, so it had the firm sort of the ridge. The materials used in the canards were a lot more rigid, so she didn't. The early models would porpoise a lot, especially on hard landings, whereas here with the later models. All right, letting AI just talk with that one and taking out here. All right, now we'll taxi out onto the runway. Now we've got our clearances. Now we'll use first stage of the flaps here. As I said, what's interesting about these is that they're actually in a different position, and it's funny because the developer actually also records it as saying it's almost very alien-like controls. Just look at the wind here. We use this as a departure actually. It's very almost alien-like controls they describe it as, which is really in a way a great way to describe it. All right, so just make sure I've got everything set here. So there's no, it's a constant speed propeller, so there's no propeller sort of mix sort of propeller adjustments to make. And I think we've got really good here. We've got landing strobes, navs are on, pumps off, is on and ready to go. All right, let us depart. Throttles up. She lifts the tail so fast, like that lift just kicks in. That can really catch you unawares. And then up she goes. She's just literally just leaping into the air. That is just insane. Tucking those flaps up very quickly. And the climb rate on this thing is just absolutely freaking nuts. Like, it is just so insane. It is just absolutely insane, this climb rate. And she's, holding steady, 120 knots. And I'm going to estimate this is going to be, here, looking at 4,500 feet per minute. She's just insane how quickly this thing just wants to fly. So we're just going to chop that throttle right back, and we're going to lean, we're going to sort of bring our nose back down. She just super just wants to take off. Like, it just, Oh, it's just incredibly thrilling. It really, really is absolutely incredibly thrilling. And that's what I find, one of the things I find fascinating about this aircraft is that it really juxtaposes so much, but so well all at the same time. So, this aircraft, it is perfectly, it has that stupidly awesome performance that we just saw there, like in climb, for example. But then, we lean the mixture out, we sort of lean the mixture out, and you can trim it out, and she'll just happily just cruise along, no problems at all. She'll just happily trim along, 1600 RPM, 100 knots, and she'll happily cruise along, no problem at all. She does, again, she wants to fly because of the wing area, the efficiency of the wing loading that's granted by this wing configuration does mean that she does like to, she does want to climb, she does like to fly. So you do have to ride the trim a lot while you're sort of stabilizing in cruise. But once you do, she sips fuel, and she's very, very docile. But at the same time, she can be extraordinarily hard to handle and slippery. Like, even as I said, as we saw during that takeoff, one notch flaps out, she literally leaps into the sky. She just wants to scream for the stars, and it's just amazing. Like, even now, sort of, barely, sort of seeking 1700 RPM, and still trimming down just to bring the nose level to keep a level altitude here. Like, she will just happily purr along with this, no problem at all. And it really does, this aircraft just offers such a juxtaposition to so many different types of aviation, and so many different types of flying experiences. So I'm already sort of drawn into this aircraft because it's another one of those aircraft that is, easy to learn, hard to master, is sort of how I put into it. So, all right, I think that's it. So the only couple of things to show off here, I mean, we do have a sort of mode here, which is you got a park mode, which is kind of cool. We'll show you that probably when we land, because that's actually kind of cool. And then you have a mode down here, the plexiglass tint. So you can actually change the tint of the canopy. It doesn't affect how the tint from the inside looking out, but it does affect the tint from the outside looking in. So 3 different levels of tint that are available to your canopy. So nice little add-on. Isn't necessary, I don't know, I think it looks cool, kind of fun, and again, a nice little thing from the developer. Okay, we can turn our fuel switch pump off for now while we are in our cruise. As I said, this is going to be a fairly short flight, so I don't think we'll need to do, actually, you know what, we will just do our pump. We'll do our auxiliary transfer pump on. So that will transfer fuel from our storage tank into our main operational tank. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll take this opportunity while we're in a bit of a cruise here to go have a look at the outside now that we've jumped to the sky. We'll have a look at the outside, have a look at some of the cool features of this aircraft. Again, it'll look a bit more of a look at the outside model, and then we'll put it through its paces doing a bit of canyon flying. So back outside and having a look at this airframe, and again, we just need to get grab that experience of how just alien unusual this aircraft looks, and yet somehow just really captures, like, I look at this and just go, it just screams speed, it really does. And yet, as I said, like, we're flying this very docile, sort of just calm cruise as well. So it's a great sort of juxtaposition that this aircraft offers, and it's really, really fascinating. Again, as we sort of see some of the, again, you can see all the fine curves that have been created and added into this model, and just really help bring it to life, and just really capture that, and really gives it that very natural sort of flowing design to it, which I think you really need to have in a racing aircraft. So yeah, I mean, looks great. The range of liveries that it comes with are pretty damn impressive, and there's a paint kit available for developers who wanting to make their own as well. It has a range of interior designs as well, spread across the different liveries as well. I think there's 4 different interiors, and I think it's about 4 different interiors of 14 liveries that are included with this aircraft. So there's a lot going on in this aircraft, that's for sure. All right, now we've had a look at the outside. had a look at the control surfaces. I think it is time for us to go into these canyons. As I said, for those who may know your aviation, you may know where we are. We're going to go through some of Star Wars Canyon. So we're going to take this for a bit of an exercise through Star Wars Canyon and see how it goes and see how it performs in its what I feel is what it's meant for, which is a bit of racing. I'm looking forward to giving this up. So let's go give it a crack. So being able to put this aircraft through its paces, through some of the low flying in the valley floors and through some of the canyons and through the mountains of Star Wars Canyon was an absolute thrill, and it really just really sort of, for me, it really grew what this aircraft is about. This aircraft is about just having fun, and it really captures the sheer joy and the challenges of competitive racing aviation. So this is something that we can of course look forward to, with official support coming very soon from Microsoft Flight Simulator for air racing with the upcoming Reno release. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this sort of integrates with that in the future. But you can still get this feeling, this sensation of flying like this now with this aircraft, and it really captures so well. Like, the roll rate is absolutely insane. The speed and the sense of speed as well when you're sort of close to the ground and just belting it out is just incredibly thrilling. It really is. It just feeling it so close, and it just feels what this aircraft is made for. It's really interesting aerodynamically as well, because you very much feel and get the sensation of the ground effect of the aircraft when you are low with this wing design, and it does give you a very unique and different sense of flying, that is for sure. It's definitely unlike anything else that I have ever actually flown, real or virtually, and that is just an amazing thing to capture. Also, I know that some of you do enjoy the more technical aspects of flying as well, and I did conduct some steep turns, some stall turns, some slow speed flight with this aircraft as well, and it does handle very much like the aircraft from the pilot operating handbook that I could tell, and handles a steep turn very, very well. She does have a tendency to, at least with me flying, she has a tendency to sort of vary the pitch a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's more down to the pilot rather than the aircraft. But either way, it does handle that really, really well. So yeah, after that little bit of fun, so I was alluding to before, it does have a basic sort of autopilot system in here, very, very basic, and it does have this GPS, the GNS 500 here as well. So let's just quickly punch in where we're going to be heading to. So we're going to do that. We're going to push the cursor, and let's set it. Oop, wrong one. That's the one we want. And we're going to set this one to Kilo India Yankee Kilo. So we're going to make that to scroll. Drop that vertical speed a little bit while we're doing this. Don't want to stall out while we're doing this. Alright, so Kilo India Yankee Kilo. Lot of nose trim. Come on, can't you? Kilo India Yankee Kilo. There we go. Enter and activate. Alright, there we go. Alright, so what we're going to do is now to show our autopilot. What we'll do is we'll go to here, we'll go change our CDI over to GPS, and we'll activate our AP, and we'll go nav, and we'll go altitude hold. As I said, it's a very basic autopilot. Autopilot indicator just there as well on the main dash, and essentially the autopilot functions of this one are fairly limited. Vertical speed hold, altitude hold, it just takes a snapshot of what altitude that you're on. Navigation heading hold, and that's kind of it. So it is a very basic autopilot, but again, much of what I would expect of a home-built aircraft. So custom avionics, I think they do well. Alright, and just obviously pumping some fuel back in from our auxiliary tanks into our main tank. I think we should have enough to get us back now. Alright, with that, I think I'll leave it at that, and we'll rejoin this flight as we rejoin the pattern for coming in for landing. So while we're heading back to come in for our landing, to do our landing and give our final thoughts, I just do want to quickly showcase this. So I did talk about it. I mentioned it briefly at the start of the video, and this is what is called park mode or Oshkosh mode, as the developer mentions as well in the manuals. So essentially, I mean, one of the things that this aircraft was, is very, very a common sight as is Oshkosh, and it's also used as a great little tourer. So it is quite common, for some users to actually do things like, camp overnight or stay away with their aircraft. So this sort of park mode or Oshkosh mode actually sort of replicates that, where they actually sort of, you actually have your tents, these two little tents appear just near the aircraft when you do use this mode. So it's something kind of cool. It's cutesy, doesn't really affect anything, no, but I really like it. Like, I just think it's a nice little touch, a nice little homage to the aircraft and how it is often used as well. This also actually showcases as well that some of the liveries, not all, but some of the liveries do also fully supportive of custom registrations. So you enter in your registration and it will actually show on the aircraft as well. The developer even has a way, is actually put in there as well, like a template for if you want to update and adjust your registration. Gives you a guide on how to do that as well. So again, this developer, like Lionheart Creations, is just putting a lot of work into their aircraft to be able to give us a really customizable and also wonderful experience. So really just wanted to showcase that off before we come in and give our final thoughts. All right, so here we are as we coming in over the top. We'll do. Realize actually you should probably be. I'm probably going to be not following exact procedures here because I'll be doing. I think I'll be doing my downwind turn on the wrong side of the field, but that's okay. That's what virtual aviation is for. Okay, so we're crossing here, coming in for 2-1. So cutting the throttles. Now, this aircraft does have a fairly high approach speed as well, which is always a bit of a challenge with this aircraft. So we'll enter into our downwind leg and configure ourselves for landing. Okay. Our landing lights are checked on. Okay. First flaps. Now, one of the challenges that cause this aircraft is that you've got to keep a fairly you've got to be very mindful of your descent rate when you actually touch the main gear down, because as I sort of alluded to earlier, sometimes they have unfortunately have a tendency to prop strike, particularly the earlier versions of this aircraft, because of a lack of reinforcement on the front wing, which also houses the undercarriage as well. So it is something to be aware of when making your approach. So we're going to have to be leading off a bit more altitude here. Nice. Okay, turning final. The other thing to be that's challenging with this aircraft as well is that she gets into ground effect a lot, and she tends to float very, very well because of the unique design of the staggered wings. And as I alluded to in like our pre-flight briefing, talking about it, essentially it becomes an chronoplan. A wing-in ground effect craft, and you can literally almost just keep flying almost indefinitely, just like a meter or so off the ground. So just something to be very aware of when you're coming in for the approach and coming in for landing. Okay, ref is good. A little heavy on the descent rate. We'll trim that up. You want to make sure that you touch with the main gear first. No, oh, and yeah, that's, you got to be very careful because it's almost lost lift completely there. And then, watching the porpoising. It's going to be a long landing. This is not going to be great. Okay, full flap. Center. Okay, pushing that. Feel that ground effect just kicking in, just slightly tweak throttles, and the ground effect really fully kicked in. All right. And there's that bounce. Okay. And all right, only a little bit of a bounce. and then watching very gentle on the brakes, because as we saw at the start, you have a tendency to nose over if you're not very careful. All right, now we'll take this taxiway. So the landing is really tricky. Like I've done a couple of test landings of this, and the bounce has been terrible. And the float is something that you have to really be aware of. Like it can really sort of catch you by surprise. It really can. So. And we see, as we're flying along here, you can see, as I said, like the elevators are at the front, which just, it weirds me out a little bit, but yes, that is cool. All right, we'll tuck those flaps back in. All right, there we go. All right, let's finish our taxi. Then we'll park the aircraft up and we'll give our final thoughts on this little bird. All right, there we go, and parked up, and parking brake on, mixture, fuel cut off, throttle closed. Pumps are all off, magnetos set to off, avionics are off, fuel pumps, everything else is off, landing strobes, navs are all off, and open the canopy, and battery master off. All right, there we go. Okay, all done. Let's now give our final thoughts. So the Quickie Q200 from Lionheart Creations, I mean, it is a bucket of ton to fly. It really is. It is a beautifully highly detailed model of a really out there looking aeroplane that it feels like it almost belongs in a science fiction movie rather than in the annals of aviation history. And yet here we are with, you know, this aircraft. It is stupidly fun to fly. You've got immense amount of power and performance packed away in this engine and this airframe, but it's not as simple a matter as just throw the throttle forward and yank and bank. The aircraft, you know, there are structural limitations the aircraft have that I have pushed past and crashed multiple times. The aircraft also has some quirks, like with, you know, because it is such high lift, that sometimes trying to turn can be a real nightmare. So you have to be right on the throttle and be aware of that as you're doing any kind of maneuvers as well, particularly at high angles of attack. So it's a very challenging, and the sheer design of it just makes for some fascinating aeronautical concepts. It really does, and I think it really takes advantage of the updates to the flight dynamics and flight engine that Asobo provided us to as part of Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. And just overall, looks great. Systems modeled really well from what I could read up on, and looks pretty like the real thing. But it does have that sort of, you know, enough of mod cons in there to make it comfortable and accessible for all. Again, if you're, you know, if this is for somebody who wants to be hands on the stick, although there is an autopilot in there, this is very much for somebody who wants to fly and wants to be engaged with their aircraft. This is going to be an aircraft that you seriously might want to pick up. And given the fact that we've got Reno coming out from Asobo in the very near future, I think the popularity of this aircraft will only increase. So get your practice in now for what would inevitably be, I'm sure, a Q200 Cup. All right, folks, that's been my little review of the Lionheart Creations Q200, available now from your Lionheart simulations directly, or from your favorite flight sim retailer, or from the Microsoft Marketplace, available now. All right, folks, thanks very much for warning. Thank you very much for watching. Before we go, I do want to say a final huge shout out. Thank you very much to the team at Lionheart Creations for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft today. And with that, folks, that does round it out. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter and on Twitch. Just search NovaWing24. All right, folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.